Good afternoon. My name is Scott Redler, Chief Strategic Officer at T3Lab.com. Welcome to today's recap and look ahead. So if you came in pretty tactical, pretty flat after last week's break of the ascending channel, the momentum trends, you pretty much woke up, you saw the futures down, and you're like, all right, this could be an opportunity. But I need to have a plan together to see what levels hold, if strength could come back to stronger sectors, or if weaker sectors find a low. Sounds like a lot, but it really isn't. That's what we call our game plan. I come in here, I do a morning call express, a real quick version of my quick and dirty thoughts, and then a longer version for Redler All Access, and then throughout the day, I try and update you. A lot of guys are like, oh, what'd you do all day? I'm like, I'm trading, my VTF saw my positions, my Redler All Access got some tweets, I give you guys a plan, but there's lots of ways to, approach your resources, and I try and update when I see things, or I try and teach you how to execute on your own, just so you could update just in case, I'm not letting you know what exactly I'm doing because, again, there's different types of products. So hopefully you had a good day. You came in somewhat flat, or maybe you came in short. Some traders definitely were short, considering how weak we were into Friday, especially when they also put off the bill. But anyway, we held the lows. We did some price discovery. We have some new levels to trade against. Some things acted better than others. Let's get into it. First of all, here's the S&P cash. S&P cash wound up breaking below the 50-day and reclaimed it. Talked about 230, can sellers keep us below 230? They did not. Then I said, can sellers keep us below last week's low of 23.35? They could not. So if you did come in short, maybe you sold into this H cell setup. Some of you guys are like, what's an H cell setup? Well, when you have this pull down and you have a reflex move up into resistance, some guys like to short into resistance versus just in case they can't get a break the low trade, which happened overnight, not intraday. So anyway, this morning you have a new low of 23.22. That is your new point of reference. We pretty much grinded up all day, and now this 8 and 21 days should move down, and I think that's a little bit closer now to 22.53. So right around 11 o'clock, we were talking about how maybe that little reflex low is the bottom for the week because you have the quarter ending, and maybe some of the strong stocks that have been in play might get a little markup. Yes, that does happen on Wall Street. My note, I have my focus section on what I think could go green and where I will be looking to see if we come off those lows to buy, because I did come in flat and I do leave with I think 4 or 5 positions I'll get into, but I have them from a lot lower. I'll give you the rationale why. Well, first of all, Apple's been best in breed. Wrote down that the 21-day hasn't been tested in a while. Figured best in breed should hold. So I had some pre-market orders in to buy it at that 21-day, and now all of a sudden, it came off that, was strong all day, and we'll see whether or not it could make a push into upper areas. But for now, I bought the dip. I didn't add on strength, and we'll see whether or not, if we do have a better tape. We've been down for 8 days. This has been best in breed above the 21-day. Also mentioned, I'm going to look at BABA. That had a positive Barron story. Most sectors are getting down to the 50-day. It's been holding the 8-day. Look at this, held the 8-day again. Actually, it's been holding the 21-day. So it even held higher. So I am in some, and we'll see if at some point, if this 109.13 gets taken out. All in all, acting very well, trending higher. So for me, I was like, let me see if some strength returns, and bought into a strategic area, not blindly, and I think this looks okay. Still, we've been on top of this ever since it broke this descending channel right there. Okay, and then wound up, a lot of guys might even just be long versus this earnings gap. Never filled it, so that showed you some upper commitment. Some guys are also in the Chinese names with Momo. They think that it could make a new move. They had great earnings. Technically still looks great when momentum names stay above the 8 and 21-day. They become go-to vehicles. So at this point, above the 8 and 21-day, reversed today and closed strong. So we'll see if anything could make another move into highs. It's probably this name. Then moving along, in my note, I've had these 2 names on there. AAOI, a newer name. Okay, it broke out. We listed it here last week. It was down. Some of you guys played it to go green. I did not. It's good to know what names are strong in a down open. You can make extra cash flow. Some of you guys were also looking at Light. Light, I did not trade this one either. Okay, but what did this do? This broke above the 8 and 21-day here. This was the level I listed in my note last week. And then what did it do? Held the 8-day, closed strong. Probably could, continue. So you want to know, again, what closed strong, what could be bought in a down open, not based on the stock, but the stock didn't care that healthcare wasn't passed, etc. Okay, so those two names, were recently added to the go-to list a few weeks ago because they were stronger. I tend to not play those because I don't know them as well. A name that I did play well that was on my focus list was Tesla. It's been on my focus list for years, but re-engaged since the report. So I was buying it pre-market since it closed on Friday strong. So, that's one of the rules. Look, it closed strong on Friday, said if it could hold 258-ish, it's in the game to take out 264, but what was the low? The low was 259.75. I did not get it down there. I started buying it around 262. Nice close. Should get a gap fill and probably gets back to the highs. Some of us are also in the call spread. Down here, we bought the 260s, and then up here sold the 280s, so I'll just let that go. But then I also wanted to play it for this setup, so I'm still there, acting very strong. Let's hope they don't do a secondary tonight. I'll be a little upset. But anyway, that's one of my longs with Apple and Baba and Momo. I did not go with Facebook. It's also been holding higher. What do I mean by holding higher? Here's your 21-day, okay, that it's held, and then now it reversed into the 8-day, so still considered a best-in-breed stock. And then even some of the other guys that have been a little wishy-washy held where they had to. The Amazon held the 50-day, okay, so maybe it needs a little bit of time, but it hung in there. Google, that's been a little bit more broken, rallied today, but still. How do you play a stock that breaks this ascending channel to play, buy a dip? Well, you look for a red dog reversal. Okay, what's a red dog reversal? Opens up low, gets, reclaims the area, 833, and then maybe goes green, and all of a sudden you made a nice trade. Now tomorrow you'll see whether it breaks this to retest that, and that's how you trade a lower level trade with a plan versus buying, and catching a falling knife. At least here, you had a morning low to trade against. The banks, I did sell my Bank of America on what's called on Friday, and I did not rebuy it back. I apologize. You look here, came in, held support. I did buy it here, sold into strength, and then I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna, I don't feel like sitting in this because, Goldman was so weak, making lower lows. I should have bought this back though, because this was stronger. So was J.P. Morgan. J.P. Morgan also, reclaimed, all these lows here. So we'll see what's next. I wound up focusing on Goldman Sachs, which was the weakest one, thinking, maybe we get a bottom tail, and if they want to rally the market, they can rally Goldman. So anyway, the reason I didn't take Bank of America overnight was because this closed on the lows, and I could have bought Bank of America cheaper. I just didn't. I wound up buying Goldman here, and let's hope that it tries to retrace a little bit back towards this 230-ish area, for a scalp. But ultimately, this is below the 21-day and the 50-day, so it's weaker versus the other ones that I showed you, and it's below this accelerated trend line. So I don't go to this name first. First names I go to are the strongest names. We weren't sure if tech would play downside catch-up or if they would hold up. Well, within the first 30 minutes, they showed you that they were going to hold up and gave you really nice trades, and then some of the other ones kind of came up. What time is it? Listen, it's 4:18. I have to go. All in all, maybe the morning low is a low that could stick for the next few sessions. There are stronger stocks and weaker ones, which I just went over, which I'm in a few of them. I think there's a little bit more room in the indices if they want to do a push. I wouldn't be all in long the same way a lot of guys who weren't short overnight were shorted all day today and lost money because they thought that the gap down with the fear that it would have continuation, and there wasn't. So, they're not giving money away both ways. You have to actually really be strategic, have your plan, know your levels, know what your sector and stocks are doing, and then use your tiering system accordingly. I was long a lot more lower today, but I did take some out because I think there could be a little bit of continuation into tomorrow. We'll talk about that at the morning call. Have a good night.